Upon rereading Darko Souvin's On the Poetics of the Science Fiction Genre, I have perceived his point to be why we as humans with vivid imaginations need science fiction, and how we have throughout history devised a plethora of vastly different tales which led us to developing the science fiction genre. Whether that be through writing and developing exact science fiction, precursors to science fiction, or tales that have only had elements of science fiction in them. I believe his thesis is clearly stated relatively early on as, in the following paper, I shall argue for a definition of science fiction as a literature of cognitive estrangement. He then goes on to discuss the roots of science fiction and how they have originated. Continuing on, he also clearly defines the different types of science fiction and how authors have constructed vastly different stories which can still be described as the same genre. I have found his conclusion to be exactly defining how to determine whether something is science fiction or not by holding up to works that have come before it, and that there must be some underlying message. Essentially, that all works of science fiction must prove to either teach you a lesson on a personal level or to teach everyone who reads it how society could be better by adapting techniques or technology that are the cornerstones of said work of science fiction. While all works of science fiction must simultaneously be entertaining and challenging the human curiosity, fear, and hope, while teaching something about scientific knowledge and social knowledge. My personal definition of science fiction is quite simply a work of fiction where the plot is based significantly around actual scientific fact or facts the filmmaker can convince the audience are either real or could be real. There are parts of Metropolis that are science and parts that are fiction, creating a combined output of science fiction. The science of this film being mainly social science, or how society worked at the time of the film. In a different sense, how Fritz Lang perceived society would head if they were to keep continuing down the path they were on, which in a sense is also fiction, as it is the director's vision of the future and what is to come. However, this is an exact example of science fiction, as it is based directly in the facts of how business, commerce, and how everything was being produced before Lang's very eyes, the heavily fiction part of the piece being creating robots and bringing them to life. Although society was on the verge of creating the first humanoid robot, which was produced and displayed in 1928, 1 year after this film's release, it was not a fact at the time the film was being made. Obviously, robots being literally brought to life has remained an impossibility to this day. These are just a few examples of science fiction being employed by and in Metropolis.